You're listening to Search the Scriptures Daily, a program in which we encourage everyone who desires to know God's truth to look to God's Word for all that is essential for salvation and living one's life in a way that is pleasing to Him. In this first segment of our program, we are in our series featuring Dave Hunt's book, Seeking and Finding God. So, Dave, one opposing view to your claim that life continues on after death because of man's non-physical parts, his spirit and soul, they're eternal elements that are not affected by death. That's your position. And that opposing view is, well, there's nothing to prepare for. When you're dead, and that's the end of it all. Now, today we want to consider another opposing belief, that death is followed by unconditional acceptance, and it constitutes the next step in the progression of our existence. It's really spiritual advancement. But before we get into that, I really want to go over something we didn't get to last week.
Let me interrupt you, Tom, for a second, if I may.
Sure.
Christopher Hitchens, maybe some don't even know him. He's one of the foremost atheists, very sharp. I've listened to quite a few debates. He's going around debating Christians. But he comforts everybody with these words. He says, well, don't be frightened of death. When you're dead, you won't know anything. It's okay. Now, that's the comfort of the atheist. And yet, Richard Dawkins, who is really the leader of the new atheists, he says, I've heard him say it a number of times, it's a great privilege. I really feel it's a great privilege to be alive. Well, what does that mean? Is he going to live 100 years maybe? He might. But what is that in the cosmic calendar? I mean, it's not even a blip. And this whole universe is heading for death, destruction, and he's glad to be alive? I mean, what is the significance of his life? His books will be gone. His voice will be gone. His memory will be gone. I don't fathom these atheists.
Mm-hmm. Dave, the thing we didn't get to last week, I mean, you sort of implied, and I guess outright said, that man is an eternal being. Well, that's what I want to go over today. When you say that man is an eternal being whose life doesn't end when his body dies, that raises some questions about eternity. The second law of thermodynamics seems to deny eternity, pointing to the end of everything. So, well, moreover, it also implies a beginning, which also denies eternity. So what's the basis for eternity?
Well, of course, Genesis begins in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not the beginning of God, but it's the beginning of time, space, and matter. And the scientists have finally come to that conclusion. The astronomers, they resisted it for a long time. But you can't say that energy was here forever because of what you just said, the second law of thermodynamics. Mm-hmm. It runs down like a clock. The law of entropy, it becomes less and less usable. So we know for sure that energy has not been here forever. Now that means that energy didn't exist before what they call the Big Bang, which in my book, Cosmos, Creator, and Human Destiny, I give you a whole lot of reasons why there was not a Big Bang.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the book's not available yet.
Right, but
the Lord willing.
Hopefully it will be in a few months. But where energy couldn't have been hanging around forever to wait to gather itself together into the entire universe about the size of an aspirin pill and then suddenly explode. I mean, it would have entropied before it banged. So there had to be a beginning. But that is a contradiction, Tom, also of the first law of thermodynamics, which says energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Well, if it can't be created, energy must have been here forever. Well, if it had been here forever, it would have entropied by now. It wouldn't be usable at all. None of it would be usable. So we have a problem right at the very beginning. What are we going to do? Where did the energy come from? But anyway, we are not only physical beings, but we must be non-physical. You cannot escape that. Ideas, as we've explained many times on this program, ideas, thoughts are not physical. Your brain is not running the show. Your brain doesn't tell you what you want to have for lunch today. Your brain does not originate your thoughts. If your brain, I'm talking about the physical matter in the brain.
Yeah, sometimes people get mind and brain confused.
Right.
They're just not thinking clearly on that.
If your brain originates your thoughts, you're a prisoner of your brain. I mean, what is my brain going to think of next? I mean, does my brain really want to do this math problem, a student could say? Or does my brain really want me to be in this school? No, that's ridiculous. You are the person living in the physical body, but you're a non-physical being because you have non-physical ideas. And physical brain cannot come up with non-physical ideas. I mean, this is pretty well established now. Logic will tell you that. It's taken the neurologists and scientists a long time to come to this conclusion. I don't remember. I think maybe we did quote Sir Arthur Eddington last week, but he puts it very simply, and I like the way he says it. He says, if you say that this idea of calling ideas non-physical is nonsense, tell me, what is the physical basis of nonsense? Would you describe nonsense in physical terms? And then he says this, and I love the way he says it. There's a difference between physical laws that must be obeyed. You can think they don't have to be obeyed and step out of an airplane at 37,000 feet and say, I don't believe in this law of gravity. Well, you'll find out the law of gravity is true. You must obey. You cannot get away from it. You put two chemicals together in a test tube, the reaction that will result, you have no control over it. All right? And he says there's a difference between physical laws that must be obeyed and moral laws that ought to be obeyed. And he says ought puts you outside of chemistry and physics. That's a very succinct way of saying it. So I don't think we can argue with that. So if we're really non-physical, the laws of thermodynamics don't have any control over the soul and spirit, have no control over ideas. You cannot give me a basis on which you would say that the real person that is inside the body who initiates the thoughts, the real thinker who made the decisions, I challenge you, give me proof that that person will be gone.
Dave, when we're talking about eternity, some people understand that to mean that we have existed forever. So even the non-physical part that you just made a case for, has that existed forever?
No, because it was created by God. God has existed forever. He is without beginning and without end, but we are without end. That is our soul and spirit. It'll go on forever and ever and ever. That's a solemn thought, because this is why Jesus said, those who persist in their rebellion against God will be cast into outer...
For more information about the Berean call, call us toll-free at our order number or visit our website